Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on the PhD Place for this special webinar on AI use in academia. We're going to be exploring the ethics surrounding AI or artificial intelligence, the use of generative AI and the growing space of AI in our research experience. Today's webinar is sponsored by Sitebase, so we'll be giving you an inside look at some of the tools that they've developed to help sharpen your research. My name is Emma, and I'm the writing group lead here at the PhD Place. I'm also a PhD researcher at Ulster University. Today, I'm also joined by Nathan and Sai Corinne, and I wondered if you both like to introduce yourself, and we'll start with Nath.
Yes, hello. Well, thank you so much, Emma, for hosting today's space. I'm really excited to talk about AI. So I'm Nath. I'm founder of the PhD Place. I'm also a third year PhD student, which is final year in the UK, so that's quite scary. I'm also at the University of Nottingham in the School of Sociology and Social Policy. Thank you very much for having me as well today, Emma.
Thank you so much, Nath. And Sai Corinne, can I ask you to introduce yourself as well?
Hi guys, thanks for the invite, Emma and Nathan. I'm Sai Corinne, co-founder of SciSpace, and been working in this scientific productivity space for the past 8 years or so. Pretty excited to speak about SciSpace as well as all the aspects around AI and research.
So Sai Corinne, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us today and to our community. I wanted to ask then if you could tell us a little bit about SciSpace and why you founded it.
Yep. So the journey to SciSpace has not been pretty linear. I mean, prior to SciSpace, I started my first venture. It's called Typeset. And this was back when I was doing research and publishing a research paper. And the problem that I felt was formatting a research paper and, submitting to a target journal. I felt like that entire process was pretty tedious and you had to learn LaTeX. Back then, I was not accustomed to LaTeX. So being a computer science engineer, I felt like I could just write code to generate this LaTeX code and create a PDF output. And that idea, converted into a tool called Typeset, and it received a lot of love. And that was my first, idea that I explored in this space. And that tool was used by about 1 million researchers in total. And,
Wow.
so this was way back in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And we were using small pieces of AI. Specifically, whenever a person uploads a research article, we recognize the headings, subheadings, titles, citations, references, and all of that to generate the LaTeX code. And that's when I realized if you could automate small pieces in the entire research workflow, I think you can make a researcher pretty productive. And with that idea, we started SciSpace. This was 3 years ago, with the goal that how can we take the latest state of the art AI technology to automate the complex and repetitive and painful pieces in the entire research workflow. And now we all have seen the capabilities of the so-called large language models. And we are literally trying to use those capabilities to automate much bigger tasks. And the future that I see is where you could come to SciSpace and literally delegate a big task that you have, the task that you would ideally delegate a real research assistant. So yeah, I mean, we can talk more about it, but that's the core genesis
Absolutely.
of how we started SciSpace.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. I wanted to ask as well, what do you see as the main benefits then for researchers incorporating AI power tools like SciSpace into their academic journey?
Yeah, at this point, what you could see as a primary benefit is saving a lot of time. Just to give you an example, we support a workflow called literature review. And in typical literature review process, I used to use Google Scholar and Science Direct and all the other places. When I type a query, you get a bunch of links. You have to go through each link, read the article, and extract the data points. But you can do that right now with just few seconds using these AI agents.
Yeah,
So that's going to save you a lot of time. So it's going to make you more productive.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you so much for that, Nathan.
Awesome stuff. Yes. Okay. I was just having some problems listening to you both, but I think I might have fixed it now, so that's good.
Brilliant.
So in the first part of today's webinar, I thought we might just talk about your literature review tool. So for most PhD researchers, the first thing that you work on will be your literature review, and I think it's incredibly overwhelming, especially our writing group. It's the thing that people bring and they talk about is their literature review, and I think it also takes the longest.
Hmm.
So Emma, you've had a chance to test out SciSpace's AI tool in the context of your own research. I just wonder if you might share with us about your experience first.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nath. So yeah, I personally think this tool is so useful. It's incredible. I know when I started my PhD, I was really asked to go away and research my topic, which had enormous scope. I wasn't really sure where to start. I wasn't sure what to focus my efforts on. And I guess the sheer amount of literature on my topic just became overwhelming very quickly. And I also didn't know how to record those papers or synthesize that information that I was reading. So using this tool, it's really so straightforward. Entering your research topic into the search bar, you'll then be presented with all the papers that might be of interest to you, except it won't just be a list of papers without any context. It will actually give you valuable insights and summaries of each paper. So the first thing I noticed was right at the very top of your page, there's a paragraph containing insights from the top 5 papers. And that was almost shaped like an abstract, which I found really useful. It really summarized and synthesized that information. So I was recently working on a scoping review, which took almost a year of work. And one of the things that I was worried about was somehow missing a paper or not properly appraising the paper that I did identify. So for me, one of the best aspects of the literature review tool was that it brings together all of the paper's conclusions and in a critical way as well. And that includes the paper's limitations. So, for anyone carrying out a literature review or even a scoping review, I do think that this feature has the potential to save you weeks of work.
That's really useful. Yeah, I actually have had a go. I found papers that I actually didn't know existed on my topic,
Right.
so that was very useful exercise because they didn't actually appear in my library search. So yeah, finding papers that my university doesn't actually have access to. So I have
Mm,
reached out to a few people just to say, "Oh, please, can I have access to your paper?" Because
yeah.
yeah, I especially in my topic, it's quite niche and
Hmm.
kind of need all the papers I can get.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Sai, I wondered what your favorite feature from this tool is, and how you feel that as a developer you can support the academic research process.
Yeah, I mean, before I answer this question, I'll just go back to the two things that you both mentioned, which is that you found papers uh,
Hmm.
that you were not able to find it in other tools, and I think that's very interesting because if you look at the current state of the art, like let's say Google Scholar or any other tools prior to this entire LLM revolution, is you type a keyword. So your search begins with a keyword,
Hmm.
um, and all the search engines usually are built out these results based on the keyword based relevance. So based on the keyword that you have, it swifts through all the literature and finds all the papers which has highest keyword relevance. In SciSpace, what we've done is you really don't need to worry about a keyword. If you just type a natural language query, we understand the meaning and the intent of whatever your query is, and that way we are able to like pull in the papers not only from that domain but other shoulder niches or like other domains which could answer your question partially or
Hmm.
directly. So with that, you would end up seeing interesting papers that you wouldn't have typically found out using a keyword-based search. So that's that's a pretty big delta, but people don't realize that. But underneath it, there is this different technology that's being applied, and that way you don't miss out on a lot of papers. And my most favorite feature in Lit Review is literally seeing the results not as a list of papers but as a columns. So I don't know if
Hmm.
you had a chance to play with that on
Yeah,
SciSpace.
absolutely.
Exactly. So on SciSpace,
Yep.
whenever you type a query, you get a table, and each column correlates to the sub question or any kind of data that you want to extract out of the papers. So that saves me a lot of time. And I see the future where, on a daily basis we are seeing about hundreds and thousands of papers getting published. And in this, fast moving world, I think we could take the help of AI and say that, hey AI, go read all the papers that's published in the past 2 days and give me any interesting papers that you find relevant to my problem statement. So I feel like that's the future, and that's going to unlock a lot of other use cases.
So then, for people who are maybe just coming to this tool for the first time, do you have any advice for people starting their literature review? Because it's such an intimidating document to begin, especially if you're like me and you fear that blank page.
Yeah, I mean, that's one problem that we're trying to solve with that table layout. So you could type different queries and you could literally export that table layout to Excel sheet. Pretty much, solving, cutting time to actually create the end report of whatever the lit review that you're trying to do. So
Hmm.
people should not be intimidated, because most of that job, of the tedious job of going, reading, extracting data sets, finding the right papers that you're interested in, is pretty much automated. I think you should give it a shot. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you so much, Sai, for that. So, everybody, in the second part of today's webinar, we're going to discuss the Copilot Research Reading Companion tool, which we'll talk about in more detail in a moment. I think Sai will be able to describe it and all of its features better than probably I can. So, Sai, would you like to elaborate on what this tool is used for, the Copilot Research Companion tool?
Yes. So Copilot was our first tool that we launched in the market, and the idea there was to have an experience similar to like ChatGPT, but for a research paper. And the goal with that, what we are really trying to solve, is whenever you come across a research paper, you usually skim through that paper, right? You read the abstract, you
Hmm.
probably jump to the results or conclusions and whatnot.
Yeah.
Uh, and with that traditional process, you might miss out on a lot of interesting bits and pieces in the paper. To solve that problem, what we've created is an assistant where you could say that, look, this is a paper that I'm interested in. Tell me what are the contributions. Tell me
Hmm.
what is the core novelty, and tell me how it can help me on my problem statement. So you could ask any kind of question to the Copilot companion on a specific research paper, and it will help you answer that. So that way you could filter
Yeah.
out bad papers very, pretty fast.
Yeah. That really does sound amazing. I found it so useful as well when I used it, just asking whatever it was I wanted to ask. I guess as well that this feature would be incredibly useful then for researchers at all stages of that research. So I was thinking about how useful it would be not just for the literature review, but also for the discussion chapter of your thesis. I was recently using the tool myself and asked Copilot to tell me about future implications for research in my area. And I actually couldn't believe that it addressed every single issue that I myself had come up with. So it was incredibly helpful. I would also say that you don't need to be working on your PhD thesis to benefit from these tools. I think Copilot would be just as useful for somebody who is working on a manuscript, perhaps, and hoping to publish their work. So I wanted to ask, Sai, how do you think that this tool could be used to support the publishing process?
Yeah, so just about a month ago, we launched a feature called Notebooks. So,
Hmm.
whenever you ask any question on a research paper using the Copilot Companion, or you do a search on Lit Review, any snippet of text that you find useful, you could just click that and put save to notes. And
Hmm.
what's going to do is it's going to take the entire text and drop it in a text editor. And the interesting piece is that there is an AI built into the text editor. So you could paraphrase it, you could write in a specific tone, you could even generate few sections to just get you started, and all the
Hmm.
content comes up with the citations. So that way, I think it's also going to help you write the first draft much faster, and helps you think through the entire process of writing the manuscript.
Absolutely. So I really liked that there were questions, suggestions as well. So there was like unexpected results, strengths and weaknesses. And there was also a section on novel methodologies to see how these papers have contributed to the field. So you literally could spend hours exploring all the questions and answers, well, to whatever you would like. But it would probably still be a fraction, I think, of the time that it would take if you were doing this research without Copilot. So an incredibly useful tool. So we're going to move on to, you mentioned the notebook and the paraphrasing tool. So in the third section of the webinar, we wanted to walk through some of the additional AI tools that are available through SciSpace. I've spoken about how easy it is to become overwhelmed with information. And I think a big part of that is not knowing how to record or track everything that you've learned from your research. So as I mentioned, there is a notebook feature, and this allows you to save all your research, including those valuable paper insights. So I wondered if you wanted to talk a little bit more in detail about the notebook feature and how we can use it to track all of our notes and information.
Yep. So either in lit review or Q&A on a research article, just collect the interesting pieces that you want to collect, and all that data will be moved to notes. But what's interesting in notes is that you can click at the end of a text, and it tries to predict what you're going to write as a continuing sentence. So that helped me break the writing barrier that I usually have, like thinking or
Yeah.
literally come to a point where I really don't know what to do. How do I continue the sentence? So in that instances, it's going to auto write it for you, at least the next sentence. So that's pretty interesting. And what I also do is that I ask all the questions that I can on multiple papers, dump them in the notes, and I just select the entire text and I prompt. You can write your own custom prompt, and I prompt it to like, hey, can you generate an introduction section out of these, specifically talking about these aspects? And it's going to do that and also generate citations for you. So I think if you give it more context, let's say you want to write a result section, just write that as a heading, and underneath it, you ask the AI to generate. It's going to look at all the context from the entire notes, and it's going to smartly suggest what to write next. So overall, it's going to increase the speed to generate the first draft, and also generate the draft more professionally according to a specific tone that you really like. Yeah.
Absolutely, that sounds incredible. I also noticed that you can also have multiple notebooks. So I found that really useful for different projects or different areas of your research. And I could see myself saving different notebooks for even perhaps different chapters of my thesis, and even for planning out different manuscripts as well. In addition to this, SciSpace also offer the scholarly paraphrasing tool, which can help make your academic writing clearer with a number of different tones like academic, formal, creative. And I can think of a few people that might actually benefit from the last option of humble mode. So, Nathan, you wanted to, we wanted to ask about, there's going to be lots of people going to be dubious about using a tool like SciSpace. What do you think are the biggest concerns that academics are facing? And could you share with us perhaps your perspective on the ethical use of AI in research, considering that it's growing in importance in academia?
Definitely, yeah. And it's been so nice listening to you both talk about these different tools. Just on the multiple notebooks that you mentioned there, yes, I think as academics with our multiple side projects, that is a very useful tool. But yeah, you want me to talk about ethics? Okay, so I think that we have to acknowledge the question which is on everyone's lips when it comes to AI, and that's the sort of growing debate around the ethical challenges related to using AI in our research. Because I suppose there's so much potential to transform the research process, our data analysis, the literature review, which we've touched on here. But I think this rapid development of these tools has also brought quite a lot of anxiety within the academic community also. And Of course, there's lots of different issues around the use of AI, the generation of academic content, bias in AI algorithms, data protection, but also originality and authorship, which, avoiding plagiarism, maintaining academic integrity, which I think recently in particular, there's been a lot of instances of students and also professors using AI to write their papers and somehow making it through peer review and opening with a line, as of my last knowledge update in, these stories seem to be really surfacing all of the time at the moment and emphasizing the issues of using AI uncritically as well. Now, I know that it isn't what we're talking about today, but I hope Sai won't mind me mentioning there are tools like the SciSpace Academic AI Detector, which is part of that broader conversation about ensuring integrity and ethical standards in this AI boom. On one hand, I think AI is something that we need to embrace as part of the future and accept that it is going to shape the academic experience and our outputs. But on the other hand, it just must be done ethically. So I think researchers should be proactive in familiarizing yourself with ethical guidelines for AI use, referencing AI content, and just really being transparent. But also, don't let it put you off. Like, do consider engaging with genuinely useful tools that can save you time. So, literature searches, proofreading, because time is so important in academia, and these tools really are there to help. And they're becoming so widespread in their use that, to a point, it's almost like if you're not using them, maybe you're at a disadvantage too.
Right.
I do think, though, it's important to get a human to look over your work as well as an AI tool. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great, Nate. Thank you so much for that. And I would agree with what you've said. Sai, I just wondered, do you want to add anything to that, to this conversation about ethical use in AI?
Yeah, I mean, the entire publishing industry right now is going through this transition, and that's the reason why there is this anxiety and pushback. But I'm sure we all agree that more researchers would be using these tools. Like, the technology will be ubiquitously available and making every researcher productive. So there is a big upside on by using these tools. But what will also happen is, from the publishing standpoint or from the trust standpoint, peer review have to change, right? Because there will be too many of these AI generated content, and there are a lot of paper mills. We need to have different rubrics or like checklists on how to evaluate these papers, and what role can AI play to solve that curation. So all these are like pretty unsolved problems, but I think the peer review and the curation is where a lot of effort has to be spent by the community, by everyone, and that way I
Yeah.
think we could probably like preserve the integrity of the entire industry.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So thank you so much for that. Before we move on to some quick fire questions, it's also worth asking, Sai, how can people get started using SciSpace, and is there a free trial that people can use?
Yeah, so we have a free version across all the tools that we offer, and it's pretty good. I mean, you could get a lot of tasks done without paying anything. So just go to typeset.io or just Google SciSpace. Either of that will help you land onto our landing page. Just sign up with your email ID and start using it, and you don't need to pay anything. And the more you use, at some point you would be you would come across a paywall, or if you need a high accuracy, and that's when we ask you to pay. And the reason, it's pretty straightforward. Like, if you need better answers, we have to spend more money in compute to support that. So that's the reason
Right.
why we ask for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you, Sai, for that. Okay, so it's time for some questions that have been sent in by the PhD Place community. And we're going to try and keep the answers as short as possible in this section. So I'll start with Nath, I think. So, what do you think is the most beneficial part about using AI in your own day-to-day research experience?
Oh gosh, being succinct is not my yeah. I'll try. Um, so I use AI currently for a few different reasons. I think that my use of AI is definitely going to change over
Hmm.
time, but at the moment I use it predominantly to sharpen up my emails and make sure that I'm not making silly mistakes. So
Hmm.
proofreading. More recently, I have used the literature review tool because I'm writing my literature review, and
Yeah.
I've used that search tool to really sort of maximize my understanding of what's available out there. It was a really good safety net, actually, just to ensure that I was including everything that I needed to,
Hmm.
because there were papers that I had missed that actually were really obviously should have been included.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's really useful because like I said before, it brings up papers that aren't in your university library search. Um, and then yeah, please, you can also reach out to the author directly
Hmm.
to get at that paper if you don't
Absolutely.
have access.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Nath, for that. And Sai, from your perspective, do you think that AI should be referenced if it is used by PhD researchers?
Yes, ideally, I think it's going to help preserve the integrity and like keeps things transparent. And I think
Right.
most I've seen there's this culture even from the publishers encouraging authors to have AI generated co-authors, right? So AI co-authors.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, so I think Elsevier allows that, and probably a couple of other journals. So yes, I would 100% recommend that to include either acknowledgements or probably even as a
Yeah.
co-author.
Absolutely. I would agree with that as well. And for both of you, then, what is the one thing that AI can't yet do, but you think it might be able to do in the future? And Sai, do you want to start with that?
So I think the entire point of hypothesis validation at this point it cannot do with high accuracy, but in the future it should be able to do that, right? It could read the entire literature and tell you whether it could be validated out by supporting the existing literature. And we are also seeing robotic arms doing a lot of
Hmm.
experiments, especially in pharma and bio.
Yeah.
So I think we could at least think that in the future, at least for a couple of domains, there could be this AI scientist uh, working in partnership with the real scientist, the human
Hmm.
scientist,
Yeah.
according to the values, or having a strong alignment within them, where most of the experimentation, clinical trials, all this could be automated and simulated.
Right. That
So
sounds
I really
amazing.
look forward
That's
for that
really
future.
interesting. Absolutely. And Nath, what about you? What do you think some of the things that AI might be able to do in the future?
Oh my gosh, that was such a wonderful answer. What I guess if I thought about what would I like AI to be able to do, maybe my
Yeah.
dishes or my laundry. Um, yeah,
That'd be nice.
yeah, definitely. I think that yeah, so then I could actually get on and do some writing. That would be really nice.
Exactly.
I think that there's more and more integrations just coming up all the time.
Yeah.
We might start to see more everyday applications of AI, I think, within
Mhm.
our homes, workplaces, more and more mundane tasks being taken over. I think so many academics would be very, very grateful if the future of AI included marking some papers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. That's great. Thank you so much. So listen, everybody, that brings us to the end of this very special session. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to Sai for joining us today and speaking in so much detail and such interesting detail about all of the tools. And a reminder of the website there. So it is scispace.com. You can also find SciSpace on X as well, which is just at SciSpace_. And follow them for more AI tools and tips as well. Thank you so much, both. I really hope everybody's enjoyed the session and learnt something new about using AI. Thank you so much for your time, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Emma and Nate. Thanks a lot, everyone. Take care.
Thank you so much,
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more academia related content, then please subscribe to the PhD Place YouTube channel.